Hi, welcome back to another episode of Energy Conversation. So you're here with Celeste Mohammad. So Celeste, welcome. Thank you for being here. We're excited to have this conversation because we're always talking technical and energy, but I like to talk a little bit of non-technical today. So
Yes.
tell us about yourself a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate this because, as you said, the oil and gas industry can be very technical. And for those of us on the outside looking in, at least for me, I didn't know much. I didn't understand much about the industry or about the plight of women in the industry until I started writing this book. So, and part of the goal in writing this book is not just to continue the conversation about women within the industry, but to have people beyond the industry really engage in that conversation because, oil and gas belongs to all of us in this country. It's our natural resource, so we should know what's happening. So this is a great venture. Thanks for having me.
Well, you being a Caribbean woman, and I like that in the title of the book, you have Caribbean oil and gas.
Yes.
And you're very specific to it. And even talking about women in the Caribbean as well, delving into oil and gas is a whole diversification in itself. So tell us a little bit what brought you to even writing and taking that kind of focus.
Well, we live in an oil and gas economy. It's like we don't even think about it. I don't think we think about it enough. So we see things happening next door in Guyana and in Suriname, and it's just like, okay, this is normal. But a friend of mine, I have many friends in the industry, a friend of mine pointed out that although the whole world has been sort of hyper-focused on the Southern Caribbean oil and gas industry, nobody's looking for the perspective of the woman. How do women feel about the fact that the oil and gas industry is blowing up, all this attention? And so my friend, she said to me, I've been in the industry for 25 years. I really want to write down my experiences. And I listened to her and I was like, you're right. We need to capture some of this in a book. But at first, I didn't know how I was going to write a book about oil and gas because I didn't know anything about oil and gas. So it took me about 6 months of thinking about it to come up with a sort of proposal. And then I went back to my friend and I said, look, she has a small publishing company. I said, look, this is the kind of book I would like to write. I don't want to just talk to you. I want to talk to as many women as I can and ask them what their experience has been. I want to talk to women in Trinidad. I want to talk to women in Suriname. I want to talk to women in Guyana. And let's see what comes out of it.
And this is just another avenue you've created for women to actually get a voice in the space that we have right now. Because when you think oil and gas, you think of somebody in a copper role working, preferably a man,
Yes.
right? You don't really think women in copper role working behind the scenes, being analysts, engineers, anything of the sort. So coming out of your conversations with these women, what are some of the top things that, just is like in your mind now ingrained?
Well, I think one of the first things I would point out is I was surprised by how many different kinds of careers you can have in oil and gas. I always thought you just had to be like an engineer or a geoscientist or something, and that was it. I didn't realize there are so many different career paths you can have. You can do communications, you can do IT, and even beyond that, like with this whole technology and, there's so much happening. And at least 4 of the women in the book told me that their entry into oil and gas was sort of accidental. They trained in something else, and then somehow they just ended up here and they thrived in this environment. So I think we need to broaden our perspective of what a woman in oil and gas is or can be.
I agree, because I feel like a lot of our young people right now coming out of university, they really think that they're failures if they don't get into the field that they've studied for the last 3 to 4 years, right? And we've seen, like you yourself, right? Lawyer turned writer, right? And I'm sure you didn't think Celeste way long ago would be Celeste now sitting here talking about your book, right? So I think that is one of the elements coming out of your book and coming out of this age that we really need to push for for the youths coming out of university right now. So we're talking non-technical, right? So how has your perspective of the energy sector in the Caribbean changed now that you've learned about it?
Yes. So I'm a little embarrassed to say, before this, my view of women in oil and gas was all of these women making a lot of money and traveling all over the world and having an easy life. And after talking to them, I realized no, it's not that easy. They actually have faced and overcome some serious challenges. You know, whether they're working in the boardroom or they're working out on a platform, these women have had to come up against, you know, like some, I would say, some systemic challenges, an industry that doesn't necessarily welcome women, and they've had to be stronger. They've had to stand and say, you know what, I'm not moving. And they've had to fight for recognition. Something as simple as performance appraisals. A number of them mentioned the fact that men tend to be assessed differently to women. So whereas you might have a man being assessed as, oh, he's a great leader, he's very assertive. Same behavior in a woman would be assessed as, oh, she's too aggressive. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and I didn't realize that, because all we know typically of oil and gas is wealth. We don't know how much I didn't know at least, how much of strength of character these women have had to show.
And that's so true because we've seen in the past, I mean, you've lived in the US, the Me Too movement,
Yes.
you know, diversifying the workplace. Everybody is into that right now. That's like the new trend, right?
Yes, yes.
Diversifying the workplace, making sure there's different ethnicities, different genders, different sexual orientation right now. And so now that you have that viewpoint from the book, what do you hope now for the future of women in oil and gas? Like, for those coming out of university, from the experience that all the testimonials that you've had, what is your hope now?
Well, I can be selfish with my first hope and say that I hope that women in the industry embrace this book. Men too. You see, what this book does is it packages this conversation we're having in a very convenient way. So let's say someone coming out of university, a girl, whatever, reading this book brings you very quickly up to speed. And that is what I think needs to happen. I think that more than just going and studying academically, perhaps women entering the industry, men entering the industry, they need to do their research and try to get a sense of what it's like to prepare themselves mentally for whatever they meet when they actually do enter the industry.
And now we're having, within Trinidad, Guyana, Suriname, right? Guyana is off to a great start. I mean, it's tripling revenue every year, right? Suriname is up and coming. Trinidad has new prospects. How do you see women fitting in to all these developments moving forward? Because we're still thinking it's a man's game, even though we have a lot of top women in top executive positions in these operating companies.
I have strong hopes because you know why? As part of my research for this book, I uncovered a report. I can't remember if it is 2020, 2021, UN-based report showing that women are outperforming men educationally across the board, even in science and technology fields. Women may not yet be surpassing men in terms of numbers in engineering, in UE, but women are getting more further degrees in engineering, like masters and whatever. So I feel like we're at a tipping point where we could end up in a situation similar to what I found in Suriname, where there are more women at senior level than there are men. You know, so the coming years will be interesting. And as the oil and gas industry gets more technology based and you need less manual labor, qualified women are waiting in the wings to come in.
I agree. And I want to kind of move out of the Caribbean a little bit as we start to wrap up. Outside of, Trinidad, Guyana, Suriname, what is something that you will say to other persons, other women, right? Because, I mean, there's Nigeria, there's different places in the world that are oil producing. right? And I'm sure they're having the same sort of problems, same sort of issues, facing the same sort of challenges. What will you say to that woman?
I'm glad you asked that because what I did after I spoke to these women in the Southern Caribbean, I went and I looked at the global research just to see how what they're saying tracks what's happening elsewhere in the world. And you're right, be it geoscientists in North America or women trying to break into the oil and gas industry in Tanzania or Nigeria or the UK, it's all basically the same vibe of the women are coming into the industry, but they're not staying for whatever reasons. So I think the message I would say is that wherever you are in the world, if you're a woman trying to make it in this industry, whatever challenges you're facing, you are actually not alone. You can feel alone at times, but you're not alone. And I hope that there are women who will draw strength from that others have come before and they've made it.
And I want to change it from like us talking to the woman now to the systems
And the systems
in place. Because I mean, like men drive most of those operating processes within these companies, right? And it's just been historic, right? It's not anything on men. However, what will make it now, what certain process changes you think in these companies will make it easier for women to feel, okay, I feel comfortable entering. I wouldn't feel too scared to be in engineering because I don't want to feel too little as being the only woman in the classroom or the only person, only woman in the boardroom. You know, what are some of the process changes on that end you think would help?
You know, nothing is going to change until perception changes. And again, the research shows that there still is, even in this day and age, what they call a perception gap between how women are experiencing the industry and how men are seeing the industry. The men designing these systems still don't fully understand what it is to be a woman in the industry. And I think initiatives like this book help. So if you are a man looking to become more enlightened as a leader, as a boss, as a cheerleader, a supporter of the women in your organization, and just looking to probably check yourself and see if you're where you are in terms of perception, I think initiatives like this would help. You know, you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes it's not deliberate, sometimes there's no malice, you simply don't know. When we change that and bridge that perception gap, systems will begin to change.
Yeah, and I think having conversations like these also do that. Because look at us, we're two women, communications, a writer at Energy Conference talking about.
This is fantastic.
Right?
Let's do this more.
Right? So what's next for you?
Well, right now, this is my priority, but I will always be writing. I'm already working on another book and another book. And yeah, this is my first non-fiction book, but I love writing fiction and I will go back to it. And yeah, so watch this space.
Watch this space. You know, watch this space.
Watch this space.
So you guys, you have it. Guys and women. So you have it. Celeste Mohammad, thank you for sharing about your book, sharing about your experience, and sharing your outlook. That's what we really need, and in this space, especially at Energy Conference on Energy Conversations. So stay tuned for more of our content.